From the subreddit Showerthoughts. In theory, first-person characters never blink. Or maybe they blink the same time as you. SCP Breach Gang? You blink on their behalf. When you play a first-person game, it's like you become the character in a way. So, your thoughts are their thoughts, unless stated otherwise, and you blinking is them blinking through you. SCP Containment Breach would like a word. Maybe you don't see through their eyes but through a camera that they're wearing. They outsource this visual effect to the actual humans sitting in front of the screen. They blink when we do, so we never notice it. Cutscenes are actually to compensate but masked as Saint Ori Pro GRSC on. Not even when they get flashbanged. Just play alone in the dark silly. In practice, SCP Containment Breach intensifies. Try playing SCP Containment Breach, and say that again /s. The notable exception being the playable character in SCP Containment Breach. Yeah, you blink for them. In most cases. There's a couple first-person games where your character blinks. SCP Containment Breach makes a whole gimmick out of it. Just imagine dude running though the desert at you, at top speed, eyes wide the fuck open, never blinking once, with a big-ass machine gun. They blink when you blink, idiot. They blink at the same time as you. Or they blink faster than your frequency. Smile. What you mean is that in practice, first-person characters never blink because we don't ever see them blink. In theory they would blink because they're humans, and humans blink. Except in cutscenes. Sure they do, however always between 2 frames. Microstutters. Outer Wilds blinks. Unless it's programmed in. So let's take this logically first person in grammars as yourself, meaning that you and the character are the same, so you just blink for them, and they don't have to blink anymore cause you already blinked for them. They also heal ridiculously fast, so maybe their eyes are just healing faster than having them open damages them. In theory, smiley face. In practice we blink instead, and some games actively show them blinking or using it as a mechanic. I can never describe how much I hate you right now. Why? And for some reason when they hold their guns without aiming, just holding them, they place them in front of their face covering half their vision. Makes sense. And sometimes they have no head. I cannot describe how many people I've heard say this fucking kill me. That changes. Now you blink 100 times per minute and you could die while you're blinking at any time. Loading screens and exiting/entering the game qualify as blinks for me. Fun fact, when you turn your head around fast enough, your eyes automatically close. That's why fast turning around in games is such a pain, and why some devs apply motion blur, when really they should be cutting the picture off as soon as you go above a certain rotational speed, I guess. What do you think lag is? When it comes to video and film cameras, isn't it actually blinking at a rate consistent with its frame rate, 24 FPS for film, 30 FPS for video, 60 FPS for HD video? When you're watching a film being projected, it's actually dark for a fraction of a second as it transitions between frames, but your brain fills in the gap so motion appears seamless. Except in Alone in the Dark 5 where you have a designated key to manually blink. You also have an absolute rock-solid aim. Arthur Morgan blink when you switch to first-person view. Do you notice anything when you blink? Probably not, because otherwise that would be very annoying. They would, but people would complain of frames lost. What if it blinks when you blink? Yeah, they do. There you. Except for D9341. SCP game does. Stares at screen blink motherfucker. If the first-person character blinked, there would be twice as much blinking. Ha, you're wrong. Well, at least in one example, the player character is SCP Containment Breach. Robots. Uck. TF you mean in theory? Also I know this is a joke but I always interpreted it as you are the character since it's first person so you blinking is the character blinking. Actually no. FPS characters blink at something mostly between 30 to 60 times a second. You are only seeing through one eye. Depending on your monitor they can blink 30, 60, 120 or even 144 times a second. They blink when you blink since you know. It's first person and you are the character. That just made Lara Croft even scarier. Shameless theft for upvotes. What a coincidence that this idea is everywhere on Reddit today.